Yes, I can.
Okay. So, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing good, Ed. How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
That's good. Yeah, I'm fine, thanks. So I
I
watched
get
your
up.
your talk.
I get up in the morning,
Huh?
do my talk. My talk gets me all pumped up and ready to go for the day.
Yeah, I loved it. Yeah, you're a kind of a. Have you studied philosophy, or you just? I guess you have.
Well, I did minor in philosophy when I was in getting a degree in English, 1960, and then I studied it for during the 60s. But then I left that for Eastern traditions, and it's kind of like The Life of Pi. Did you see that movie?
No,
Oh, okay.
the
Never
life of
mind.
the life of Pi. Yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
I'll get it if you think it's worth getting.
Oh, yeah. The movie is a spiritual journey where the character goes through uh, different religions, not studying them, but being the different religions, trying them out from the inside. And then he tries out rational philosophy and finds them all lacking, just as the Buddha did, and then went on a mystical journey, which is uh, creates a the movie itself creates a Zen cone of is it true or not true, which isn't, So anyway, that I love that movie and Avatar are my favorite uh, movie metaphors.
Well, I'll
You
have
know
to
that
watch.
point. Yeah,
Have to watch them. But you were actually able to sit down and read the philosophers like Buber and the different
yeah,
people and understand it.
yeah, yeah. I
Like,
I understand more now when I pick them up again than I did when I was first investigating philosophy. I had one teacher. It wasn't a very I only had two philosopher teachers, but one, maybe I just had one. He taught everything. It was a small college at the time. And he, my favorite memory of him was that when he talked, he would put his heel against the wall, lean against the wall with his foot. So his room had a bathroom ring around it where he would walk around the room and rub his heel on it. And the whole room, it was like a big tub. But yeah, but he was. I look back on him. He was an existentialist, but he had a lot of passion for inquiry, and I think he passed that on to me. So philosophy became like a dialectic of going through. Oh, this is it. No, this is not it. Oh, this is it. No, this isn't it. So
well, from your talk, I guess this morning, well, it must be that when I discovered Eckhart, when the power of now, that for me that was like going to be a fixed point. Oh, now I got it. If I just fix on Eckhart Tolle and the power of now, then I'll know.
yeah,
And I don't. It's a moving point as well.
yeah. I went through. Like I discovered Eckhart Tolle in 2005. I was in a bookstore up at Yogaville, and before I could leave, somebody says, "Oh, you need this book." I'd never heard of him, so I began to study him, read his stuff every morning, and then we got his DVDs and talks, and I became a Tolle center. So I just swam in Tolle for a couple of years,
Right.
and that was 2005. So then I just kind of expanded out of that pool, and then I just kept on going. But then somebody gave me a box of uh, quotes, coffee table box of quotes,
Hmm.
and I created a blog called Meditations on Eckhart Tolle. And every morning I would turn a card over and write to it. So I would just I would use the quote as a creative jumping off point. So then I began to. It's kind of like a martini. I put the Tolly was the vermouth, and I was the gin, and mix them together. So he's become more not something to study and fix myself on, but just as a stimulus
Right.
for my own creative leap, which
And,
is the talk.
right. And you have the background of, I guess, Joseph Campbell plus all the different philosophers.
He's another one that I immersed myself in for years.
Oh, you did?
I discovered him in 1970. And I went to one of his talks. Actually, he was like the Bible of yoga. I got into this Light of Yoga Society, and you had to read Joseph Campbell, because it was by reading Joseph Campbell that you could understand the Indian mythology that yoga's involved in metaphorically, instead of creating another religion out of it, but seeing it metaphorically. So about every 10 years, I revisit Joseph Campbell and read his works. And
Do you
I
actually sit
measure
down and
my
read
own, his books.
it? Yeah.
Yeah, I have all of his books. Yeah, I have all of his books. And about every 10 years, I'll back and read them again. So,
So you discovered him before
uh,
Bill Moyers.
oh, yes. Yeah, I just got 1970. So he didn't become universally known until he did the Bill Moyers
Okay.
talk. But his four primary works were The Masks. Well, his first work was Hero with a Thousand Faces. And then his primary study is four books called The Masks of God. And he did Primitive Religion, Occidental Religion, Oriental Religion, and Modern. These four. And they're very thick books, but they include all of his mythological research and study. And so I've read those twice. And so,
You read through them word for word?
yeah.
Do you
And
drink?
then I take notes. I've been reading Albert Lowe for the last 4 or 5 years. He's a Zen master, recently died, who was the abbot of the Montreal Zen Center in Montreal. And he's written a number of books, but he writes about evolution and the modern world from a Zen point of view. So he's very rational in his explanation of the irrational. Let's put it that way. And so I read his books because he's able to. In other words, it's kind of like you get a teacher like that, and you read between the lines. That's what I did with Tolle. That his real message is not in the content; it's in the consciousness that's behind the words. So you have to. For me, I have to keep rereading it, and when I read something, I take notes. In other words, I'll write down key lines. I want to, and that kind of gets it in my body. When I write something down, it's kind of like my mind and body digest it instead of just thinking about it. I never go back and read the notes, but it's the act of writing them down, I think. In the same way with my talks, when I start a talk, it really doesn't formulate until I begin to write down the title and maybe draw a little stick figure. If I can draw a stick figure, that seems to bring the body and mind together and create a synthesis, which is the talk or the writing, whichever way, But so I've been watching how this process happens, and it always seems to become an inception when my body gets into it. I guess it's like with a piano. You could think a tune, but it doesn't become real, so you play it. you know, till your body begins to do it.
Okay.
So, and I think there's a lot of therapies that use the body. Like you physically walk around, physically walk through a labyrinth, or physically go back and do yoga, for instance, or physically crawl around like a baby or something. There's a lot of, I think that there's been a lot of therapies that incorporate the body in order to stabilize the mind.
Yeah, there's a book now called The Body Keeps the Score.
Yeah,
Basically saying the body is registering
right.
the conscious or the life experience.
Yeah.
So you can work
And
with
that
the
was
body
Buddha's,
whenever.
yeah, that was Buddha's primary teaching in the legend of Buddha. Because when he awakened and he was confronted by Mara, and he was confronted by the mind, uh, desire, and fear, and then there was three of them, three attacks on his awakening. One was fear, one was desire, and one was doubt. And so when Mara said, "By what authority do you sit there and say you're awakened?" And Buddha just pointed to the earth. So a lot of the pictures of the Buddha is him pointing to the earth. And that was his ground. He pointed to the body or to the earth and grounded himself in this moment, which is the body. And then the tree, and with that, the tree above him broke into flowers, and all the legendary, the whole earth applauds, but basically it's just simply being grounded in the body uh, without apology. And so meditation is that. Well, what do you do when you meditate? Well, you point to the breath, which is the body. So you ground the mind in the body, because the body is not thinking.
So this morning I thought when we started the talk, at the end, I would know how to watch my mind. Or watch how the mind works. I could actually see it. But I didn't at the end I didn't seem to roll back around to that. Or I might have missed the point in the first place.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. I don't. I hope that I come back full circle when I do a talk, and end up where I began. And sometimes I'm left out hanging, and because I tend to, I want to keep it to 30 minutes, and I noticed then I was 43 minutes, So, but there was the metaphor of the compass,
Yeah.
which was, and the whole point of Buddha Dharma is to discover that you can lift that leg of the compass and not have to have a fixed point of view that is supported by beliefs and opinion and assumptions.
In meditation,
So
what's the fixed point? Is that focusing on the breath?
well, that's it. You don't fix in any thought. Thought tries to fix you, and you identify with the thought and go off with the thought to Miami or someplace else,
So that's like
and
the
then you remember.
GPS.
Yeah, and so then, well, thought will try and unseat you
Okay.
from sitting in the body. So when you realize that you're lost in thought or moving with thought, you remember the breath, and you come back to the breath. So it becomes a game of being seated and being unseated, and then remembering that you're unseated and come back to your seat. So it's a process of not so much concentration, but just noticing when you're not being present. And the tool that is used to help that process is the breath, because the breath is not thought. So the breath is your living being. So if you can just put kind of like a basic attention or awareness on the breath, you begin to disidentify with thinking and language. And language is what creates the ego, or thinking in language and beliefs and opinions and all that stuff is the support system of the fixed point of the ego. So the whole practice is transcending the fear that the ego has and letting go of its fixed point. So, because the ego, if you have no fixed point, you're psychotic. You're just in another. You're in no man's land. You're lost in space. So you have to be fixed. And but the problem is the world is not fixed. I thought that was a good metaphor I had this morning about the treadmill. I think I ended up on that.
Mm-hmm.
That the modern world is like a treadmill that's going faster. And in order to be in alignment with the treadmill, you can't be fixed. You can't have one leg on the floor. So it's kind of like the fixed ego is going to put one leg on the floor that is fixed in time and space, but the world is moving. And so you got one leg on the treadmill and one leg on the floor. That creates tremendous tension and anxiety. So we cling to a greater fixation, And then the metaphor was the umbrella, which is kind of like a compass, but then compass is, the ego can't stand alone, so it has to get under a umbrella that has a fixed pole or an authoritative leader or a certainty or a belief that's impervious to change. And so it will get under that umbrella, but the world is changing like the treadmill is moving faster, and so all of the fixed points are being disturbed. And so,
well, I guess I thought when I heard that part, that's where I kind of went, oh, that's what I was doing with Eckhart, because I was trying to sit under his tent. But
yeah,
he tells you can't do that, but
yeah, he says if you're here to learn something or get information, forget it.
right. So
Yeah,
so if but getting back to meditation, so if I'm tuning into the breath, I guess that becomes a fixed point, but it's also moving all the time. So it's like being
yeah,
on the treadmill of the breath, right?
yeah. It's a flow. It's a flow.
So then what is there something though that can watch thought, or you guess you could say ego, I don't know, form up and move through the space? Or is that the point at which you get caught up in thought?
Well, I'm not a master in this. I've been meditating since 2005,
Mm-hmm.
when it began to happen spontaneously. Before that, I meditated as a means to an end. In other words, and that was rather sporadic. But
Okay.
when I was, seriously into yoga, well, then meditation was part of the means to an end, So you wanted to get somewhere. But when it became spontaneous, there's no place to go. I mean, you're not doing it to get anywhere. You just begin to do it.
So
And so that's a tremendous difference, or an evolutionary stage in the process, from doing it as a means to an end. I want to have a calm mind or get still or whatever. Whatever the goal is, meditation will begin to deconstruct that because it won't give it to you. And so that's why most people quit, because they reach the point where I'm not getting anything out of this. So it stops. But if you can get through that barrier, the last frontier, or beyond the pale, you can get through that. I think you're getting to that. What the quote I used for Christ was, unless the seed that falls on the ground dies, if the seed, I forgot what it was now, but the seed that doesn't die, it stands alone. But if it dies, it brings fruit. So that right there is meditation, in that the seed is the fixed point, the sense of self, the watcher, the witness. So that observer is kind of like the fixed point, but that observer doesn't exist because it's fixed outside of being. It's kind of like Yahweh, it's outside of creation. It's like the compass point. In order to have myself as an observer, I have to put my leg outside of what I'm observing. And what I'm observing is being, is the world. Then my fixed point as the observer is outside of that. And that's the scientific viewpoint. The scientist is outside of the world so he can study it. But he doesn't include himself in the study. So it's like the scientist has created a viewpoint that's outside of creation so it can study it and figure out the laws and make stuff and do that. But the science in quantum physics is destroying that construct, because now quantum physics says that the observer or the scientist creates what he observes through the choice of experiments. So an electron will be either a particle or a wave according to the experiment, according to the observer. So there is no fixed point in quantum physics. The fixed point is probability or potential. So I think Buddhism does this too. And it makes, instead of having the fixed point in space and time, the fixed point is transcendent. So one creates the fixed point instead of just sitting in one. So creativity is constantly creating a new fixed point in which I am fixed in the world, but the world is changing. So I'm creating myself as change instead of fixed. And the ego is a fixed point operating system, which I'm beginning to see, and my studies help me see this, is that the modern world, when it left the Middle Ages, had to have a fixed point, since it destroyed the fixed point of the Catholic Church. In the Middle Ages, the fixed point was Catholicism. It's a big umbrella. But then when Protestantism and Enlightenment took down that umbrella, Joseph Campbell said, modern man's in free fall, because he eliminated all of the mythologies that held us in place. So now we have to create our own mythologies.
And that's the ego?
Well, the ego is the answer to the need for a portable fixed point. So I refer this back. See, everything is moving, so you got to have a fixed point in order to stabilize the world. Otherwise, you're psychotic.
So the metaphor,
So the ego,
metaphor for that is the GPS. The ego's like the GPS moving along, and the world's changing around it as you go.
Yeah, so the GPS is a great metaphor, because you and the world are moving together. But in the flat map, you're moving, but the world is sitting still as a map. So you're having to move, so you're like in the world, but you're not of it. And so the GPS is a shift in viewpoint from that of a fixed object moving in a straight line on a flat map to a object that is in alignment with the external world, and you're both moving together and creating yourself together. Because that GPS map, whenever you move, the map changes in with you. It's kind of like Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers. You and the map both rise together. you move, the map moves with you, So you're always at home, but you're always going home. So like a treadmill, when I get on the treadmill, I notice that I am stationary, but I'm also moving. So my mind will see, it's like the mind is seeing the movement of the treadmill as if I were on a flat map and I'm going somewhere. A lot of people will put a video screen on the treadmill so that it looks like they're on a road or they're going somewhere. So you're going to run somewhere and you put the video screen there, it looks like you're running somewhere. But the truth is you're standing in one spot. So there is a paradox here, is that in our mind, consciousness, 6-point ego, we think we're going somewhere in time. And I got to get there, and I got to have a means to an end. I got to have a car. I got to walk there. I got to do yoga or whatever to get there, you see. So there's this idea of me moving on a flat map in space and time. But the truth is I'm not moving anywhere. And that the world is moving around me. So this awareness that the world is moving around me, that I'm the center of the universe, is an awakening is awakening now. And the fixed view of myself on a flat map is needed for a survival. You need that view to catch a bus and make stuff and go to the store, have plans and all that. But the view of the GPS has been repressed because it doesn't fit the map. See, the scientific world has an external map of a material world, and the view of myself as the center without a fixed point doesn't fit that map, so it doesn't exist. So this totally objective view of the world is cracking up. And the subjective view of me as the center is coming forth, and it's coming forth in a distortion. It started with the me generation in the 60s. That was the split. Before, in the 50s, everybody fit on the map of the world like robots following social convention. In the 60s, it cracked open, and you had two halves of society. One half was looking at the world from the eye of the 50s, which would mean, well, patriotism means there's a war, you got to go to war no matter whether it's good or bad, you go. And the me subjective said, well, it's patriotic. My conscience says it's not a just war, so I'm not going. So that was the birth of that me as center that does not have to conform to the flat map of the world, you see. And that began the split in the American psyche that we're still trying to figure out. So now you have Trump as a me generation politician who is creating a view of the world that is centered around me. And so everything in the world, all the facts in the world, have meaning only if it justifies and affirms me. But now this is kind of like a merry-go-round or a circus tent in the larger field, which is scientific, you see. So it's kind of like a circus show on a rational map. Anyway, but I guess the point is that there's a tremendous shift going on right now, and we don't really understand what's going on because we're swimming in it.
Because we're in it. So getting back to something, the question is, what is aware of the awareness? So if I become aware that, there's an ego that's moving through the world like a GPS, can I become aware of that happening in real time?
Well, as I said, I'm not a master on all I know is what's been happening with me, and my meditation practice really begins with the boot camp of learning how to concentrate. And the boot camp of meditation, which is necessary for the following stages of it, requires that you're able to stabilize the monkey mind, which the breath is used. So you just keep concentrating or focusing attention on the breath and stop jumping around with thinking. And gradually thinking begins to lose its grip, and you're able to sit with the breath and not think at all, except for an occasional crow flying through, quack, 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 and you can watch that crow fly through as you kind of like rest with the breath. And now it seems I'm coming to a stage where that falls off and I'm not aware of anything. It's kind of like deep sleep. Or there may be a dream. But the deep sleep part is kind of like where you sit down to meditate and then there's a big gap there. There's nothing there. And then the bell rings, ding, and you weren't there. But so there isn't really, meditation is really not about having a great experience. I don't have any experiences. I don't have anything to report. It's quite, for me, and other people say, oh, you have all these big experiences and all this stuff. I have nothing. But that's okay because I don't need that to do it. But where I do get the benefit is that it spills into the rest of my day. So I'm awake and alive and creative all day long. And I meditate for an hour in the morning and I meditate a half hour before I go to bed. And I just wake up and do that. It's not like, oh shit, I got to do that. It's just kind of like breathing. It's just what I do. And yet I'm getting no benefit out of the meditation per se. And yet my whole life is changing in the whole context of it. So it's not compartmentalized. So I meditate, have an experience there, and then I am bored, or the rest of the day is crap, or whatever. The rest of the day is alive and awake, and I'm constantly connecting dots. I'm always connecting dots and getting insights, and it seems to be a unfolding awareness where I'll get on a particular idea and it'll keep unfolding all day long. And I, share it on Facebook and whatever, and then maybe I'll talk about it at martini time. And then I'll write some at night, But there doesn't seem to be any break in the flow, so to speak, of discovery. Let's put it that way. So that, here I am, 80 years old, and I'm more alive and creative than I've ever been in my whole life. And as a consequence, my health is good. I mean, I got no problems. It's not a prediction of the future, but right now, by the mind being awake and alive, the body reflects that. So when the mind gets hung up and jammed up, well, then the body gets hung up and jammed up because they resonate each other.
Right.
Each feeds the other. Yeah.
Well, what you said about Alzheimer's was interesting, that is the mind without a fixed point. That's the fear.
Yeah. And that's why we fear that, Yeah. The person with Alzheimer's doesn't fear it. But from our point of view, that's hell on wheels.
Well, the person with ADHD, the little kid, he doesn't bother him a bit, but all the adults around him are going nuts.
No,
So
I may, what's ADHD anyway? But an energetic mind.
Right. and then tell your mind,
and
I
so
guess.
yeah, so they want to, they want to calm it down, and
So,
so
so during the
to
day, then,
stabilize it.
is there some part of the awareness that you're tuning in that is you, I guess, aware of the ego as it comes and goes
Oh yeah, yeah,
within your mind?
my whole day. Oh, I love this. See, my day is a I love discovering when I have a fixed point. Because as soon as I discover that I've got a fixed point, I've got pain. And so I've become very sensitive
By pain,
to
you
the
mean
pain of
resistance to something.
yeah, yeah, or contraction,
Oh, physical contraction.
contraction, contraction or resistance, uh, tension. So I've become very sensitive to that and notice it immediately. And by noticing it, I don't fix it. The noticer of the tension releases the tension. If you don't notice it, you're in it. You are the tension.
And
And
then,
now it has to run its course. My wife is a retired massage therapist,
mhm.
and we were at the Rotary dinner Monday night, and I looked over there and she was giving some guy a back rub. And she said, my hands, he had a stiff neck. And she said, my hands feel the knot, the heat of the tension. And my fingers go right to it and release the tension. So her mind doesn't do that, her body does that. And so I think awareness is kind of like a massage therapist that sees the tension of the fixed point. And just by being aware of it and not identifying with it, begins to release the tension. Because we don't intentionally hurt ourselves. So if I see that I'm creating the pain I'm feeling by my need to fix myself in a particular posture with my wife or with the world, so the seeing of that is not the posture, which includes my ego.
In Eckhart language, that's the watcher.
Yeah, the witness, yeah, watcher, yeah. But even that is I think that is a evolution.
Trap.
My understanding of Zen is that even that is an evolutionary stage, because the watcher has to go, because that's an intention.
Yes.
So I have the watcher means that I have an intention to be mindful. Well, that intention is also a fixed point. So the evolution of the process is to have no fixed point, which is just to be totally present in a moving reality without trying to stick one leg on the floor.
Oh, let me
Like when,
let me repeat that. The intention is to be shit. I lost it. Something in a
is,
moving reality. The intention is to
yeah,
be
and
awareness.
the intention to be mindful is the intention to fix myself in a moving reality.
Which is
So the ultimate goal of Zen is in Buddhism is to let go of that last fixed point, which is the fixation of being mindful. Because when I'm being mindful, I still have a will or an intention to be mindful of thinking or whatever you see. So that's still fixing myself outside of myself.
and that's a contraction.
In other words, in order for me to be mindful of what my mind is doing, I have to have one leg on the floor. Like when you come in, you're drunk, and the world's spinning. So you put one leg on the floor to stop the world. So that one leg on the floor is one leg off the treadmill.
Now we're
And
back
it's
to
from
martini
that.
time.
Yeah. And so see, from that. So I view the treadmill from that one leg on the floor. See, so with that, so the ultimate surrender is to take that foot off the floor and just move with the present moment. So you go with the stream instead of swimming against it. We float, but with the ego thinks you're going to drown.
Can you
we're
have an
floating
intention to do that? Can't. You're
yeah,
saying
but then
that's a
you let go of the
paradox.
intention. Yeah, but you don't need the intention because life is the flow, and we are life. So an intention to do that secretly implies that you're not floating. I have to float. So I have to do something. I have to try to float. But you can't try. You just float. It's like trying to balance. You don't try to balance. You just suddenly balance. And trying throws you off balance. So trying to be mindful is basically just a preliminary step to the point where you see that's not doing it either. Or you just, at some point, you just spontaneously let go of trying to be mindful. And I found, gee, am I doing it right now? Or I should be trying to do something here. I should be working at something here, you see. And so it keeps coming back in a different way where I have to be doing something. And so it keeps like peeling, it's like a Russian nesting dolls. We keep discovering a new doll, And so we let go of that, but it really, the letting go has to be spontaneous because you can't try to let go. So it's really and I don't know, where I am in this. I just, I seem, when I'm talking about it, I seem to know more than I do when I'm not talking about it because I never, it's kind of like, so, but I really see it, so during the day,
Yeah.
I guess the fruit of the meditation, the fruit of the seed that dies, blooms in your whole day instead of just in the meditation. I guess that's my point. So, because life is one, so if the seed grows in the garden, it doesn't just grow in one part of the garden; the whole garden grows.
And you
So
see
meditation is
meditation as the
death of the seed.
but it's
Going back to that quote by Jesus.
right.
All right, the seed, unless the seed dies, it stands alone. When the seed dies, it bears fruit. But the fruit isn't in the meditation, it's in your whole life. I guess is the point I'm reaching for here so, and this is the paradox, is that we want an experience in meditation,
Right.
and meditation offers no experience. So people quit. I'm not getting an experience.
So I have
You know?
meditated, but I quit. So now I want to run
Yeah,
out and meditate again. But that includes that intention of getting something from it. So I got to
right.
meditate until the point of when I want to quit doing it, and then I got to keep doing it.
Yeah. I think there's
This is futile.
well, this goes even this is the big hairball of Zen. The big hairball is that you can't get to the point where you give up trying unless you try with all your might. In other words, you can't get to the point
Oh,
of letting go of trying until you have exhausted yourself trying, and then keep trying. So it's not like giving up. I'm not going to try anymore. That's still trying, So it's not like it's a Zen koan in that you try with all your might, knowing that you can't get anything from trying. So it creates a double bind of two opposites, and you're holding them both simultaneously instead of going for one or the other. And when you reach that point where you can hold simultaneously two contradictory frames of references, creativity spontaneously happens. And in Zen, that's Satori, or Eureka, or awakening, or just a creative insight.
And you can
So we have to,
consciously, purposefully seek that point. The point of frustration to where you keep doing it anyway.
I don't know what makes it happen, quite frankly. And I have no idea why I'm doing this and why this has come about in my life. I think I've had a heartfelt yearning for unity that began as a young person. And the heartfelt desire was to not feel on the outside of my own experience, always looking in, this fundamental separation. And so that yearning kind of like was my Ariadne thread that brought me out of the labyrinth.
What does it mean to not feel outside of my own experience?
Well, just to never be complete, to always be checking myself to see if I was okay, if I was acceptable, or self-judgment as to why I wasn't acceptable. But that's the fundamental structure of the ego in the fixed point. And that fixed point is outside of myself. So I can see myself as an object and compare myself with others to see if I measure up, to get qualities and fame and validation, and to get love from the Father, acceptance, to be validated by your peers, to be validated by your profession, to be validated by the students or the applause or the audience. You see, all of this need to be validated is because of the fixed point that has no substantial existence. It's a viewpoint that has to be validated because it has no validation other than something external. The external world holds it in place.
And the ego tries to create that external point for its own validation.
It doesn't create it, it is that external point.
It is that external.
And our society creates it. That point is that the material secular society creates this portable fixed point as a free individual. So we have this idea that I'm a free individual. I'm free because I got choices. As a consumer-created individual who is perpetually hungry for validation and will buy anything to get validation and stop the pain.
And then what was your life intention? I forgot what you said.
If I look back, the fundamental life intention was this knowledge or knowing that there was unity and an end to this sense of separation and the search for it. So then that began, philosophy and yoga and gurus and, the whole thing, but for some reason I kept evolving through these different compartments of the labyrinth instead of staying there. A lot of people do. They make a bargain. Well, this is good. This is as far as I'm going to go. I've got enough validation here to exist a little bit, so I'll maintain. I'll stay here, But there is no end to the yearning for unity because it's not a fixed place. Unity is not fixed, it's creative. So the world is always creating itself and restoring balance. So the world is always destroying itself and creating itself as one act. But our intellect has to see it as two. So destruction and death is, see, the way we perceive reality, we perceive it in pairs, like there's death and there's life, you see, and there are two. One's good, one's bad, and I want to keep them apart. But the truth of it is they're both the same thing. Yet that's ambiguity, and so that's not truth, because truth, according to Descartes, is clear and distinct ideas, logical. So, but life is ambiguous. So the logical mind, the ego mind, the thinking mind cannot comprehend or compute or rest in ambiguity. It has to be certain it's either one or the other, which is the Zen cone. So meditation creates this contradiction of two opposites. And the practice is to sit there without moving in the uncertainty of trying to get something you can't obtain. You must try, yet you cannot obtain it, which is a paradox. I must try. I must choose. This is the Zen cone. The Zen master holds up a stick and says, if you say this is a stick, you're wrong. If you say it isn't a stick, you're wrong. Now choose which one is it, or I'm going to hit you with it. This collapses the logical mind. So meditation is like that cone in that the sitting collapses the double bind of the logical mind that is divided against itself. So the self-division comes to an end in meditation because you're okay by sitting with the self-division. You don't want to do anything to it. You don't try to get out of it. You don't try to make it better or worse. You just practice sitting there, doing absolutely nothing, even trying to do nothing. You let go of that, you see. Mm-hmm. And it's not easy because the sense of self, this willpower, wants to do something. It wants to be the chooser. It wants to be the decider.
You're saying it's quite easy active. Or it's not easy?
It's impossible. See, there again, we're coming up in this. It's possible, impossible. Now, which is it? Is it possible or is it not possible? Well, you choose one or the other, you see.
And I'll be wrong either
way. If you choose impossible, you quit. If you choose possible, you keep struggling without attaining anything until you flip into the other choice and say, okay, it's impossible, I quit.
And you don't quit.
Yeah.
If you get to where it's impossible,
if you can
quit, but I don't quit,
right.
Then I'm there.
If you can get through that barrier,
yeah.
If you get through that no man's land, if you get through the dark night of the soul, if you get through the ambiguity, there's a breakout. There's a breakthrough.
Breakthrough.
But the breakthrough cannot be known. It's not an experience. The breakthrough cannot be known until we get through the portal of the double bind, which is a lose-lose choice. If I choose it's impossible, I lose. If I choose it's possible, I lose. So there's no choice. But the ego is a chooser. That's what the ego does. It chooses. That's its function. And it has a place because you got to choose whether you're going to Walmart or not. I choose this over that. So it has a functional place, but it is a limitation because we're disconnected from the totality. And all we choose is what we already know. So we never transcend. You can't choose what you don't know. So this, as I talk about this, I'm seeing more in it than I ever saw before.
Sound brilliant.
but that getting to that pause. This is what ACM and all of these therapies want the patient.
Okay.
ACM, Course in
Miracles.
Miracles. Yeah. So all of these spiritual therapies tell the client or the devotee, when you're in a situation where you don't know what to do, you can't choose because they're ambiguous. Should I go this way or that way? I don't know. They're both the same. Pause and say, what is the truth here? What is presence here? Totally does this all the time. What's the now here? What's the presence? What's the truth here? You see, so that question stops the feedback loop of I got to choose, can't choose. I got to choose, can't choose. I got to choose, can't choose. Wow, 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 wow. Panic. I'm supposed to be able to choose, but I can't. Now I'm, all this, the feedback loop. So if you can see that, let go of the suction of it that pulls you into this whirlpool and say, wait, what's the truth here? What's the unity? What's the totality here? And then just sit there with not knowing. So this is the mystical, in the Middle Ages, the Christian mystics are always talking about the cloud of unknowing. Unknowing. So that's the moment of not knowing because we can't know. We can't choose what to know. So we surrender knowing, the need to know, and that opens the portal for transcendence and the birth of a new unity. And then suddenly you know what to do. The puzzle is gone. The question is gone. The problem is gone. This happens on mundane levels and on very high levels. When you figure out how to open up a box, oh, I turned that.
I think
it opens.
you've kind of helped me see that there's something I'm working on with clients too, which is you never got the parenting from your father that a little boy needs. Just wasn't available.
Yeah, I was that. Yeah, that was me.
Okay,
that was me.
All right, so then as you become older and go, oh shit, I never got the parenting I needed. Now how can I get that? Or what?
Right.
How can I fake it? Or how can I? What do I go do or get to create it? And in fact, there's nothing you can do because you can't redo that experience. And there's no current experience, like there's no perfect woman who's going to come along and handle it.
Right.
So you sit in that discomfort of not knowing about that, but stay in the discomfort of it, not trying to solve it. Is this the same idea?
Well, what helped me with this very problem, which is the father-son relationship, the disapproving father, the hungry son, for approval, is that the father is a metaphor for the world. So even Jesus provided an opening here when he said, I and the Father are one. Well, he's not talking about a physical father or a godfather. He's talking the world. So he's saying, I and the world are one. So, I and the world are one, which means I'm not separate from the world. So here, take this loaf of bread and this wine, and this wine is my body, and bread is my, this wine is my blood, and this bread is my body. Eat this and remember me. Well, then people get all screwed up and think that's remembering somebody in the past. But basically, it's everything is the unity of I in the world. So if you're eating eggs, you are the eggs. There's just one taste. You're not eating the eggs and thinking about bacon. I am the taste of the eggs. There's no me outside of that taste saying, this is a crappy taste. I want better taste. See, there's no fixed point outside of the taste. This taste is perfect because it's the only taste I've got. So everything is perfect when it's the only thing you got. It's the mind from the fixed point that comes in and says, oh, I can think of a better one, you see.
Uh-huh.
So if the Father then is the world, the Son's desire to be approved by the Father is basically the desire to have a GPS. So when I'm on the GPS, I'm not going from on a flat map that I want to approve of me. Wherever I move, the world approves of me and moves with me. The world and I are one on a GPS because I'm actively creating the world instead of being passively being created by the world or wanting the world to approve me or wanting the Father to approve me. So we go from a passive relationship to the world where I want the world to approve me to a GPS relationship in the world where the world and I are one. So there is no question of approval. There is nobody there to approve of me.
But there's something in here about sitting in the dilemma of not getting what I think I needed
Yeah,
to somehow evolve into that
right.
space. I lose it.
Well, that here I get back to the Buddha's Four Noble Truths. His whole teaching is in the Four Noble Truths. And the problem we have with that is because we look at it objectively. So when Buddha says life is suffering, then we look at it and say, oh yeah, humanity is suffering. Life as an object is suffering. Or maybe it's not, I don't agree, So we look at objective and we miss the teaching. The teaching is subjective. So when Buddha, the First Noble Truth says there is suffering, when I have a fixed point of view and that creates contraction and separation from my partner, I feel suffering or pain. There's the suffering. So then when I say there is the suffering, I am disconnecting it, and there is a cause for the suffering. That's the second truth. That disconnects it from the cause I think the suffering, which is my wife or the world. So the first noble truth is activated when we switch from an objective view of the world as external to me to the subjective view that I am the world and the world is me. So if I am the world and the world is me, then this suffering that I'm feeling, which is resistance to the world or my partner or myself, you see, is there because I have looked for the cause in the wrong place. I've looked at it from an objective point of view, from a point of view outside of it, instead of the view of being the world,
That
like a
I am the
GPS.
suffering I am creating.
Yeah, I am the world and the world is me means that I am the suffering that I'm experiencing. And if I'm the suffering and I'm the cause of it, why should I do it? So the seeing from that shift to the subjective removes the suffering because the cause has been misperceived. And the misperception of the cause creates the effect,
But
which
there's
is
a
my
difference
suffering.
between saying I see it and actually seeing it.
Yes.
And there's
One's
something,
intellectual,
okay.
right.
So I
One's
got to sit in
intellectual,
the suffering.
yes. Yeah.
That's the
That's where the
paradox.
meditation comes in. I learned to sit in the ambiguity of not knowing. And so that practice spills out into everyday world. So when I'm caught in an ambiguity of conflict, who's right? I'm right. No, you're right. No, she's right. No, I'm, yada, yada, yada. And I try to remove the pain by eliminating the cause, which is the other person. When I'm able to sit in that without doing anything, it dissolves. So the seeing is action. And we think the chooser is action, or the thinker is action. But the thinker doesn't see. The thinker just thinks. And thinking just feedback loops within the known as an abstraction of reality, like the menu is an abstraction of the dinner. So thinking in language, solidify ego, and thinking in language is an abstract symbols of being. And when we identify with thinking and the ego and the fixed point, we live in an alternative reality, an abstract reality that is given substance and validity by our society, which is basically a thought-built society. And yeah, totally comes back to that all the time, too, about this. And so when Tolle says the now, he's not talking about now. He's talking about awakening of the now to itself, which is a creative act, because the now is always moving. So it's kind of like now, or being, becomes awake and flows with itself, rather than trying to swim against the current or trying to float when we naturally float, if we let go of trying. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Think we-
It's kind of, it takes two people to turn on a faucet. You know what I mean? I've learned how to be okay with not being with people where the faucet can flow. See, so
Right.
most of the people I know don't want the faucet turned on, and if I turn it on, they get freaked out. So it's been a long process to be okay to live in a world where I don't have to have my faucet running all the time. Because I flood people. I flood them. I can't. I'm drowning here. Let's talk about going to Walmart. Let's talk about that nasty clerk at Walmart.
Right. Shooting guns or something.
Yeah. So anyway, that's what, I really like Facebook because it gives me a place where I can run my faucet all day long.
And if people want to watch it, they can. If they don't, they don't.
And if people, if they want to read it, fine. If they don't, fine.
So long as you get a lot of likes. I was teasing.
Yeah.
I know.
Well, even then, I used to, when I first started that, there was a lot of counting likes. And I still, you see a like, well, there's still a little like light that goes on. That's good, but at the same time, I used to, I shouldn't like lights. And, so then you begin to fault yourself for liking lights, well, I'm beyond that, you see. What the hell? I like the lights, but I don't really write for the lights, So it's good when somebody says, yeah, well that was a good thought, or thanks for that or something. That's always helpful. But it I don't know. It's okay to be liked, I guess.
Liked and not liked.
It's worse to hit yourself for liking being liked, thinking, well, I should be above that. So,
Okay. Well, thank you, and I'll check
okay.
back at some point, I guess.
Yeah,
It's okay.
thank you. It's always great to have these. I love these conversations,
Okay.
and thanks for cluing me into Zoom.
Well, and I did record this. If you're okay, and I can delete it or keep it.
Yeah.
Kind of fun.
Sure.
So I may
When
post
you
it.
record that, where does it go?
Right now, it's just on my computer. I can.
Does it go to documents or something? Is it?
I don't know.
Because
Just
when I was
file.
doing this before, the other one, I hit record and I don't know where it went.
Well, I
And of
got an
course, it's on my
email
wife's.
later that told me it went. I got an email that told me where mine went. That was the
Oh,
Zoom recording.
all right. Well, this is my wife's computer, so I really
Oh,
don't
she
know where
got an
anything is
email.
on here.
She doesn't let you look at her
She may have
emails.
gotten the email. Yeah,
Yeah, she probably.
yeah. Well, I'm going to get my own laptop as soon as I get some more money. So,
Well, I'll let you know
so I
when
can have.
this. What I could do with this is put it up on YouTube and then send you a link and you can look at it. Or
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah,
okay,
that'd be great.
I'll do that
Good.
and
Okay.
kind of go from there.
Yeah, I'll put it on my YouTube account because I got a big account.
Yeah, I got one. Or you can link from it, whatever.
Okay.
So,
Anyway, yeah. Thank you.
okay, see you.
All righty. Take
Okay.
care.
Yeah. Thank
Okay.
you.
Bye bye. How do I get out of here?
Well.
Stop.